Welcome to our TV network, your ultimate destination for all things exciting and essential. From mouth-watering food to the latest in fashion, health, education, music, movies, and news, plus thrilling sports and breathtaking travel. Our TV network brings it all to you. Tune in today and experience the best of every world, all in one place, rtv.network.
Case efficacy chain, also known as chain of efficacy, a digital chain. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Educate, efficiency, effectiveness, and evolve. So whether you are doing market research, studying, doing market analysis, or making a critical financial decision, get the latest breaking, developing market news in the cryptocurrency markets at www.efficacycoin.com. Efficacy Cryptocurrency News is powered by Case Capital Markets.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Big Picture. This is me, Grant McGaw, and we got Chris Penseby right with us. Last week, we talked a little bit about quantum, and we got such a reaction from our audience that me and Chris said, you know what, we need to unpack this even deeper, because this, and we'll mark the time, because here we are in 2025. It is right after Memorial Day. And I'm going to tell you, we'll be talking about this next year this time, and it could be a totally different situation that we could be dealing with. So, Chris, my question I want to ask you, first introduce yourself, and then say, why do you feel there's such a buzz in quantum?
Well, Grant, hey, great to be here with you again. You know, me and my partner doing the show. What could be better than that? So I'm Chris Penseby, publisher of Financial IT Magazine. And yeah, Grant, I asked you after last week's episode on quantum computing, I asked you if it's something that we could consider doing a part 2 of. And you, and based on the response that we got, said, sure. So I'm really happy that we're able to do that, because there's still more to this story on a high level that I think would be interesting for us to talk about.
100%, because this because of what it does and how it operates. Anytime you can do things quicker and they're more precise. So you have precision and then you have speed, right? And we're talking about a quantum leap. We're not talking about a small, differential, like going from 50 miles an hour to like 80 miles an hour. This is like going from 50 miles an hour to 500 miles an hour, or like just from driving in a car to being in a jet engine. It's that kind of change that we're talking about. So let's bring this back into a financial world. Here's the question I want to ask when you talk about how do you approach quantum integration with a legacy system, right? What does that look like? And can you layer this thing in, or are you going to be running in parallel with these systems?
Well, Greg, first let me set just a couple of things straight. Is that absolutely we're talking about supercharging computers, right? We're talking about quantum computers, which, and I think you're not far off by saying going from 50 miles per hour to 500. Absolutely, the potential for speed is there, as well as the most secure computing system that we have, and that's something we'll chat about in just a little bit. But let me set a little bit of the record straight on one of the issues that we have with quantum today too is, being able to keep that environment stable, right? So that's done in two ways. One is by a extreme cold atmosphere that they build around it, or a vacuum. So those are two ways they do it. And the reason they do it is because there is, in just normal temperatures and normal conditions, the flux that happens in the quantum space that then provides it to be an atmosphere that is unstable. And when you have that, then you have inaccuracies, right? And this is one of the issues. So precision is not yet a feature on quantums that we can rely on. In fact, the very nature of the quantum space and quantum computing really shows at this point that our traditional computers are much more repeatable and there's more precision. So in the financial space, we'll bring it back around to the bankings, we need repeatable actions that are precise, right? We can't have a penny off. We can't have, that it's correct this time and not correct next time or anything. So in that aspect, today, our traditional computers are much more valuable in terms of being able to provide that kind of service. So on the quantum side, though, where the real benefit is now and in the foreseeable future is on specific problem solving, right? A specific task. Okay. And again, just to go back to the banks, one of the issues is the huge amount of data banks accumulate every single day, all the time, and the huge amounts of data that they have to move. So you think about a bank's ATM network, think about a bank's branch network, think about the corporate network, think about the credit card network, think about the central bank networks, think about SWIFT. I mean, there's just layer upon layer upon layer of information that needs to move constantly. Here we can definitely see and realize benefits from quantum, where that speed and ability to move large chunks of data quickly and then process them quickly is where we're going to see the benefits in quantum. So I'll go back to you now for a second, but there's a few other, let's say, myths circulating around about quantum that we're going to debunk.
Oh, we got to talk about that for sure. You just got into some, we have to set the playing field, right? And I love how you just said that about what's the use case for quantum when it comes to large processing. You just talked about a large amount of volume, just sheer volume in the banking world that automatically opens us up, to talking about governance and compliance and regulatory risk. You talked about, hey, there's cybersecurity in this. Obviously, we've got artificial intelligence in this, and then you have the quantum compute opportunity that we're starting to see like bubble up. But what is the big problem that it solves? Why are we doing this? Yeah, you can go to outer space quicker, just to go back to our earlier analogy. But why is that important? So you're talking to me, and we got to get into it because we can't leave our audience hanging. You talk about debunking some myths. I mean, what is the big myth around quantum?
Well, the first big myth is that quantum solves everything faster. Mm-hmm. And that is not true. Okay? Quantum can solve specific problems that need huge amounts of data, and it can solve that much better than we can do any other way today, right? So this is why, now, for instance, in the blockchain space, you have certain chains out there that are marketing and touting that they're quantum proof, okay? And this is the reason why, because what is the security in the blockchain? Well, it's cryptography, right? So it's huge and very complex math problems that gets solved to be able to provide the security. right? Now, not being able to solve those problems is what prevents anybody from breaking in.
Yeah.
That's the kind of specific problem that quantum computers can go over. And I'll get into it a little bit deeper for you. You see, our traditional computers, the way they work is they work transaction after transaction, sequential, right? So I solve this problem, then I solve this one, then I solve this one, and I do that very, very quickly, and that's how they get to a point of being able to solve it. Now, why quantum can be so much faster is that you can, in parallel, solve those problems now. So now instead of this, we have this, right? So you're solving many problems simultaneously and in parallel, which increases the speed in which you can get to a final answer. And because of that, being able to solve these complex math problems that provide us cryptographically with security on the blockchain, for instance, in your cryptocurrency, for instance, those kind of problems are solvable through quantum computing, right? So that's where there's a benefit and a drawback. Now, of course, because quantum computing can solve those problems, those big math problems, it can provide security that's even better. Mm-hmm. And the way a quantum computer can go about security is what we call a lattice, right? So a lattice is like, think about a three-dimensional box all broken up into squares, and there's all lines connecting everything, right? So in quantum security, they can place a key somewhere in that box, okay? So on top of the math that you have on top, okay, you have to be able to find that key somewhere in the latest structure before you can even begin to solve the math problems. That's why the quantum security is much more advanced, and again, we like to use the word impossible, but at this point we think it's impossible to break. And I say we like to use it because we said it was impossible with the blockchain, and to date that's true. Nobody has been able to hack into a blockchain.
This is important information. We gotta, like I said, and it's always a tit for tat. I don't care what it is. You make something that, for a time, it'll be formidable. But over time, someone will figure something out. So you got to start looking at that. We're going to go to break. But when we come back, here's the question I'm going to ask you.
Well, great.
I want you to think about
what I want to do before you even ask the question, I just want to give you a little preview, is that when we come back, I'm going to drop the bomb on the whole thing.
Wow. See, so I don't even have to ask a question now, because we got to hear about the bomb that he's going to drop, right after break. So stay tuned.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stock futures were moving lower this morning. President Donald Trump's latest round of tariffs is now in place. Trump's latest tariffs pushed those imposed on China this year to as high as 104%. And now China has raised tariffs on U.S. goods to 84%. Oil today sank to a fresh 4-year low on demand concerns. It was well below $60 a barrel this morning. Another major loss for Wall Street yesterday that started with promise. Stocks jumped higher at the opening bell, but after another volatile session, punctuated by tariff remarks from the White House, the Dow finished down 320 points, the S&P 500 fell 79, the Nasdaq slid 335 points. Former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers warned that the U.S. is now likely headed toward a recession, with potentially 2 million Americans put out of work thanks to tariff increases. Summers spoke with Wall Street Week, predicting losses in household income of $5,000 per family or more. Gina Cervetti.
So there's different laws in the USVI that a lot of people don't realize. It's called the third border. And if you are incorporated there, you only pay 10% in federal taxes. So there's a huge incentive to clear different types of deal structures in the USVI that makes everybody a win-win, happy camper when it comes to deal flow.
In today's fast-paced financial landscape, access to capital is the key to success. At the heart of this revolution is Case Capital Markets, powered by SETI Case. Here, innovation and investment converge, creating a dynamic environment where businesses can thrive and reach new heights. Introducing Grant McGaw, the Senior Advisor at Case Capital Markets. Grant is a visionary leader dedicated to connecting businesses with institutional capital and strategic funding. His expertise opens doors to game-changing investment opportunities, making him an invaluable partner for companies looking to scale and succeed in the competitive world of finance. With an impressive 25 years in technology, 9 years in healthcare, and 6 years in investment banking, Grant McGaw has a proven track record. He has successfully closed over $500 million in high-value transactions, seamlessly bridging technology, healthcare, and infrastructure with innovative financial solutions. His experience is a testament to his ability to drive success. Case Capital Markets offers businesses direct access to over 32,000 venture capital firms, private equity funds, family offices, and institutional investors. This network empowers mid-market companies with under $100 million in revenue to scale beyond their limits, unlocking unprecedented growth potential. Debt, equity, growth capital, public offerings. These are the building blocks of the future of capital access. Whether you're scaling a business, seeking investment, or exploring market expansion, Grant McGaw is your trusted partner. Together, you can unlock capital and create long-term financial success. The future belongs to those who take action. Are you ready to elevate your business?
There he is. So Chris, you left the whole audience on suspense. We're sitting out here on a cliffhanger. You're talking about dropping bombs. I'm like, whoa. So our whole understanding of quantum and the problem that it solved, you're saying you're upsetting the apple cart. What's on your mind?
Well, Grant, everyone thinks that, yeah, quantum is going to be the next leap for us all, right? And that when we start talking about quantum, everything in our life is going to be better, easier, faster, and so on, right? Not true. Not true. Because here's the thing. When it comes to, for instance, streaming your movies faster, a traditional computer will do it better than a quantum computer. When it comes to playing your games and being able to have better graphics, a traditional computer will do it better than quantum will. When it comes to big data that is broad and needs to be filtered down, a traditional computer will do that better than a quantum computer. When it comes to browsing the internet, a traditional computer will do that better than a quantum will. It's not going to have the impact on those things by the very nature of how quantum computing works. In factuality, is that when you go to stream your movie or search the internet or look to play games or look to do any of the normal tests we do every day on the internet, a quantum computer will actually be slower just by the very nature of how it works.
All right, now you got to unpack that just a little bit. It's like, well, why? I mean, why would it be slower if it's doing qubits instead of ones and zeros? Is that because of how the nature of how it was, the previous system, legacy systems were built, or is it just I don't call it a flaw, but some of the drawbacks of how quantum computer operates?
Well, I think it's more if you look at the operations that they can do. Quantum computers are going to be a huge benefit on problem-specific computation, right? So I'll give an example. If we're looking at in the medical field, and we're looking at the construction of a cell, if you're looking at how a specific part in it operates, and to do that, you need to look at many variations of it. Yeah, quantum computing will far exceed today. It far exceeds what we could do in a regular traditional computer. Okay, it's a specific problem though. If we look at something like streaming your movies, you know, this is a matter of just, there's just so much capacity and so much that has to move. And once you're moving at a speed where you're watching the movie, you don't need any faster speed.
Makes sense.
What's the benefit of the faster speed at that point? Because the movie is going to play at a certain speed. Same with your game, right? Your games are going to play at certain speeds. So you're not going to realize that benefit. And it's not what quantum does best. So there really isn't any benefit when you start looking at that.
No, well, that I'm glad you see. You simplified the platform and the infrastructure. That makes perfect sense. You know, if you only need to go across the street, do you really need to get there, at 1,000 miles an hour, or you just walk across the street? And make an investment like.
Grant, it's more is, can you get there in 1,000 miles per hour? You know what I mean? At some point, that's also not practical, right? So you can only move when you're walking across the street.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
it's the use case in financial banking systems, and what we just heard was this: is that the banks of itself, because they had so much volume, they can utilize these types of systems in the back end. It's in the back end that you utilize these systems. Also, not only sort of sheer volume, but then the like you kind of alluded to it earlier, the bigger issue is security. Everyone wants a secure platform. You got to have integrity, right? That the data that is presented before you is accurate. That is, and it's trusted, right? That's the thing with the blockchain, right? Like, hey, if I got a node, no matter where it is, that node is not compromised, no matter where it is in the blockchain. But if it starts to become compromised, it throws everything off. And that's the kind of thing I kind of question that, because data integrity is huge. If the data of itself is not is compromised in any way, and that let's just say the quantum is amplifying that error over and over again, that to me introduces a whole new complexity of problem. And then it comes down to the thing the trust issue. Is this data factual or not? Has that been contemplated a lot, or is it still something on the drawing board?
I would say that's not a prime consideration at this point, right? Because two things. One, the security we have today is good. Okay, nobody's at this point broken a blockchain. The security layers on top of that quantum will provide is even better. So security is not the issue. Now, of course, there's always the ongoing arms race between the do-betters and the do-gooders, right? What we call the black hats and the white hats. I mean, there's always going to be that race going on. But security is not really a concern in context to what we have today and what quantum will give us in addition to that, right? So we're operating under pretty secure conditions. Okay, now again, you don't want to go to sleep on that, but that's basically, to me, the security part is managed, right? So it's some of the other sites. And if we start looking at what a lot of people talk about, This always comes up because AI is the buzzword of today and has been and will continue to be, and all for good reason. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really easy for a lot of people to put together and say, oh, well, if AI is so great and quantum computing is so amazing, putting the two together, it's got to be something better. And, when I hear people talk about AI and quantum computing, I make a mental note that, well, they don't really know this topic in any depth. They're actually just picking up a couple of buzzwords and, kind of making the smartest guy in the room statement, but it doesn't really hold up. That's the problem with that. It doesn't really hold up. And why it doesn't is, again, if we think about with AI, one of the things that AI does and is very good at is going out there and reaching a really broad net of information and then looking at analyzing information, right? On the quantum side, remember, we keep talking about it's more specific problem focused, right? So having this big availability of information is not really a benefit on the quantum side. Giving it a problem that is very complex, very difficult, that's the sweet spot. Mm-hmm. So the AI doesn't really fit and give the benefits that when you hear the statement, AI quantum computing, sounds anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are limited things that are possible is the reality.
Well, what you just said, I want our audience to take this away. There are certain things that quantum does not do well. And you kind of alluded to them. Simple arithmetic. It's not really the best. Or if you're running the operational systems in the back end, this is very important that because sometimes it's not a specific use case or word processing or some of the generalized app, but the high-speed data lookups, and I think that's what AI is doing now, that it can ingest a lot of information and process it, and then apply machine learning or human type thinking to it. That's not necessarily a quantum. And it sounds like quantum is a specialized tool set that you can deploy, depending on what the situation calls for, and make things run a little smoother. So sounds to me, we're not going to get rid of all of our ones and zeros, our digital infrastructure as we know it today. However, we can augment some of these systems with quantum in the background that could potentially enhance the financial banking system even further, making it easier and better for us to utilize. We're going to go to a break, and then we're going to come back because I see it on Chris's face that he's got something.
I have another one for you, Grant. I got another one. I'm not done yet.
Yeah. Oh, I know you're not done yet. You got a lot to share, a lot to go forward with. So we're going to keep our audience on ice as we prepare for this next section. Talk to you in a minute.
5-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaw, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development, to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-Star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaw explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
Hey, we're back. We're back. You know, Chris has been dropping bombs all morning and really giving us a real good understanding of what quantum it really is, what it can do and what it can't do. You've been busting myths. We're gonna call this the big picture bust mything, show right now, because you've been doing that all day, and I know you got some more. Inform us some other things that we need to know about this.
Well, Grant, look, our last show when we talked about quantum computing was really all about the great and the good, right? This show, it's been more about the bad and the not so good. But there's a silver lining to this rain cloud. And that silver lining is, how will things move forward in the future? What can we expect? What will happen? Well, in a lot of ways, the way we work, the way we do our personal business, the way we do our personal entertainment, it is not going to change in any foreseeable future. And let me preface that by saying, in my eyes, foreseeable future is not more than 3 years, right? Because if we just look in the past, I mean, things have gone from dramatic changes every 10 years to every 5 years to every 3 years, and maybe it's even dropping now. But I will safely say that, I will commit to these things as a 3-year window, right? Okay. So our day-to-day is not going to change. Where the beauty is, where the silver lining is that going forward, we'll actually be working in hybrid environments. Let me let that sink in for a second. So hybrid environments. So what that means is, it's close to something you said in the just before the break, which it really means is that we're going to be doing our tasks pretty much the same as we always on traditional computers, and those tasks that they excel at will stay with the traditional computers, but we'll combine that, we'll complement that, we'll in parallel that with quantum computers, so that anytime that there is a problem that needs a specific attention and speed is of the essence, and I'll give you some examples of those kind of things, then we'll be able to also benefit from that. The other place that there's a benefit, and this comes back to our financial community, because, yeah, we love the financial community, right? We want to see good things there. Is quantum connections, right? And what that will really mean, and you'll be hearing more and more about that. It'll be in the banking field, but you'll really hear it from the communications side of the world, right? So people that are moving huge amounts of information through phones, through PCs, through satellites, through all these different ways that our communications move today, will be enhanced and sped up through quantum connections, right? That's a given. That's probably one of the first things that we'll see happen. And when we come back to our friendly financial institutions, the benefit for them will be that, as I described earlier, they have huge networks with huge amounts of data. So just moving it faster, not even really any processing that goes into it, just the ability to move it faster and move larger amounts faster will be a key benefit that we'll have through the communications field, but specifically it will benefit the financial field. Now, where quantum computers can help us. So in business, there's a couple of problems that right now are very difficult for traditional computers to solve. I'll give you an example in logistics, right? So logistics, and I'd love to have our friend John on here, who's the colonel is a logistics specialist, right? So, I would love to, and we'll have him someday because that would be good. So one of the things that it has been a problem in logistics is when you want to figure out let's say a ship that's going to go to several ports, and you want to figure out the fastest and most convenient route for us, traditional computers it's very difficult for them because they're very much point to point, right? And it goes back to that structure of 1 to 2 to 3. This is how we solve things, right? So quantum computing can benefit because it can look at in parallel a number of different things to come up with the answer and come up with that answer much faster. So we'll see the benefit, for instance, in logistics, just in the movement of goods, of mail, of packages, of shipping containers. You can go, the ships themselves, bulk carriers, will all benefit from logistics that are optimized through quantum computing, right? So that's a real life benefit right there. To give you another one, let's go to space, right? Because space is so marvelous.
Why not?
Yeah. So when we're right now out there with cameras and ships that are being set to Mars and wherever out to the ends of our galaxy to collect data, well, when we get all that, to process it and to make the projections for what we can potentially see or be out there, traditional computers it's just too big for them, too much.
That's too much data, right? The volume.
Quantum computers will be a huge help there, and we'll be able to understand what's outside of this planet we call Earth and understand it better and more accurately.
Well, every day we find out more information, and I'm glad you brought that up. I remember even being in grade school, and all I knew about there were 9 planets, rotating around the sun, and there were stars out there. Those were suns, but there were no planets. And all of a sudden, now we find out there's billions of planets. And there's no Earth-like planets. There's nothing that could sustain life as we know it. Well, now we find out there's billions of, Earth-like planets out here. So there's a lot we don't know. So let's just not assume that we, have a lock on all things in life. But I don't think we do. However, we're getting better. I want people to understand the theme, because I'm an infrastructure guy as far as in information technology. I understand that. And what quantum really is what I call, as it is today, is in the physical infrastructure layer. It's not what you would call a software play at this point, and that's where we're seeing that difference. Like, it can't. It's not really not a good use case in what we call software engineering. That's where AI is like huge because it can begin to automate, interpret, manipulate software, that type of thing. But all of that rests on an infrastructure layer. We always think of it in the cloud. We call it cloud, but it really is very terrestrial in what it is. So that's why you have these big players. You think about the IBMs of the world, these big processing places, the Dells of the world, your Cisco, these infrastructure players are starting to look at quantum as a way to move data much quicker going faster and better and more precise than it ever did before. And potentially because of the explosion of AI. And I want people to understand AI is really to me in the software engineering layer, but it's so explosive. How are you going to keep up with it? Well, you're going to have to change some infrastructure. So quantum, I think, is a great play in that. And we always knew in the banking systems, they have been so good at adopting technology and utilizing it. People don't understand back 25 years ago, why do we have e-commerce? Because the banking system got involved and then standardized around it, and it became secure, to your point, around, hey, who would want to put, their credit card on the internet in 1998? There weren't that too many people trusting that kind of transaction. But when it got more secure, it became better, bigger players got involved, and it became a stable platform and a trusted source, right? So very, very important. And I think this is going to come back to where we're at now, and just understanding those two layers of what quantum is, what it's not, what AI is and what it's not. And to your other point, the security layer, because any system that you have, it's got to be controlled. Security is about control. Who's controlling, this kind of technology is very, very important, I would say. So I'd have to see how this is going to mature, how it's going to be able to be utilized in a much better way than it is today. Any thoughts around what I just said, Chris?
Well, Grant, I like what you said, and I agree that we're looking at a hardware play more than a software play, and on quantum computing. And I would also agree with you that AI is a software play; it's not a hardware play, right? So I think you've got that correctly aligned, and that infrastructure, looking at it from your point of view when you look at things, infrastructure is really important. And again, I think what we'll see is hybrid systems where we're using the two as a one, so to speak, right? But what has to happen for that to happen? Well, first, as we discussed right at the very beginning, one of the drawbacks we have today on quantum computing is the environment that has to be sustained for that. And if you sustain that environment, and that environment is left pure, let's say, then you can get very much more accurate results and everything, right? If that environment is not sustained correctly, that's because when the qubits themselves become unstable, that's where you get inaccuracy. So you need to have that stable. So today, to do that, again, we need either extreme cold environments or we need a vacuum environment, right? So to me, I think back to when I was young, and I remember, I don't know, in the early 80s in the bank, there would be in New York City, for Chemical Bank, there was really one floor that was the mainframe computers. And it was, and it was, the floor was raised up a good foot. You had glassed in all the way around, and inside there were the computers. You had really cold air conditioning in there. You had tons of wires that were all underneath that lifted up floor, and you had these huge machines that would be running everything, right? It's kind of like where we're at in quantum today. And just as we now can have a computer in our phone, literally, right? That, quantum computing will go through similar changes, and the environment issue, which I totally believe is a solvable issue, will be solved, and the physicality of a quantum computer will become very manageable, which then will be able to do these hybrids in a much easier fashion. That's one. That's our physical infrastructure side.
Yep.
Now your other side, which is your software side, okay, where we're short today on the quantum side and not short on the traditional computer side is just in usable software.
Mm-hmm.
There's everything out there on the traditional side, all built for traditional computers, and most of it runs very well. It doesn't really need any dramatic improvements. In fact, today, once you have the fastest internet and it's working right, you're going about as fast as it's possible. You're getting as best performance as possible. Now, today on the quantum side, there isn't that amount of specifically written software for quantum computing. Okay, when we see more of the software written for, again, it'll be specific applications, then we will have a greater and broader use of quantum computing. But right now, I would have to say that the software side is probably a little behind the physical side, and the physical side right now would be equivalent to mainframes that we had in the 1980s in terms of not performance, of course, but in terms of just physicality.
Physicality, that's so important. We're going to go to a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to sum this entire subject up. And I want to sum up, our part one, our part two. And I think people are starting to get a better picture, the bigger picture, of quantum. And we're going to bring Chris back and we're going to really bring this home. Thanks to everybody.
In today's world, where every voice competes for attention, true influence stands out. One visionary has redefined the landscape of brand building. His name is Grant McGaw, and his innovative approach is setting new standards in the industry. Recognized among the top 30 global gurus in branding for 2025, Grant McGaw is a name synonymous with transformative brand leadership. His work is not just about creating brands, it's about crafting legacies. Through his visionary strategies, he is helping leaders across the globe redefine their impact and influence. At the heart of Grant's success is the revolutionary BRAVE framework. BRAVE stands for branding, resilience, authenticity, vision, and excellence. Each element is meticulously crafted to guide leaders in building brands that are not only successful, but also meaningful. Branding sets the foundation, resilience ensures longevity, authenticity builds trust, vision drives innovation, and excellence guarantees quality. This framework is where data meets storytelling and strategy meets authenticity. From healthcare to technology, Grant's methodology is reshaping how industries approach branding. His strategies are not confined to a single sector. They are universal, adaptable, and effective. By integrating the BRAVE framework, organizations are experiencing a transformation in how they connect with their audiences, ensuring their message resonates and endures. Grant McGaw's influence extends beyond frameworks. Through his best-selling books and the acclaimed Follow the Brand podcast, he shares insights and strategies that empower leaders to elevate their brand presence. These resources are a testament to his commitment to shaping the future of branding. Grant McGaw is not just influencing the present, he is shaping the future of brand influence. His work is a beacon for those seeking to lead with purpose and impact. By embracing his methodologies, leaders are equipped to navigate the complexities of modern branding with confidence and clarity. Discover the BRAVE approach to brand leadership and unlock the potential of your brand. At 5-Star BDM, where vision meets results, Grant McGaw invites you to embark on a journey of transformation. Experience the power of strategic branding and redefine your impact in the world.
Artificial intelligence is everywhere, but the real threat to your business isn't automation. It's being invisible to your audience, your clients, your market. You could be brilliant at what you do, but if no one sees you, you don't exist. At 5-Star BDM, we help leaders escape the noise and step into the spotlight, strategically. Discover how AI can elevate your visibility, not replace your value. Start showing up where it matters.
Welcome to Follow the Brand, where we turn leaders into legends. I'm Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM. Today, we're not just talking about executive presence, we're going to transform yours. Executive presence isn't about power, it's about trust. And here's the good news. You can build it at any level. Let's dive into how you can command any room you enter. Dr. Kimberly Long, CEO of California Nurse Leaders, shared a profound insight. The moment you try to prove your power is the moment you lose it. Executive presence is about building trust and authority without force. It's about creating an environment where people lean in to listen. You can achieve this by being authentic and consistent in your communication and actions. Consider Dr. Long during a hospital merger. She lowered her voice instead of raising it, and the room leaned in. Similarly, Sarah Chen, a project manager, used this technique in meetings. Within 3 months, her team began to emulate her style. Denzel Ross, now president of IU Health South Central, built his presence by identifying communication gaps and lifting others up. These examples show how presence spreads through subtle yet powerful actions. Your action step. In your next 3 meetings, try speaking 10% slower and 20% quieter. Watch what happens. For team leads, start delegating key responsibilities. Managers should use meetings as learning labs. Directors build cross-functional bridges. The key shift? Stop being the answer person. Start being the question person. This approach fosters growth and empowers others. Patrick Green, CEO of UF Health Jacksonville, uses a communication matrix to simplify complex ideas. His 3-step formula: start with impact, follow with insight, end with action. For example, instead of saying, "We need to upgrade our systems," he says, "We can save 50 lives this year by investing in this technology. Here's how." This clarity builds influence and trust. 3 common mistakes: reactivity, over-explaining, and imposter syndrome. When challenged, take a slow sip of water to respond thoughtfully. Instead of defending every detail, offer a headline first. Dr. Long still gets nervous before board meetings but prepares thoroughly. Remember, nervousness is energy. Executive presence isn't a destination, it's a practice. Start where you are, use what you have, and build from there.
When you deliver on your promise and you have the result you were looking for, and everybody in the room is like, wow, this is what we're talking about. All right, we are back. We are back. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This has been wonderful. Chris, you've been unpacking a lot around quantum, not only this week, but also last week. And anybody that missed the show, I encourage you to see the show from last week as well, because we are talking about some things that are very, very important about computational advantage, understanding the myths are around quantum, what it can do, what it can't do. You need to understand this thing, the difference between hardware plays and software plays, and kind of where we're at, because we're in a very volatile time. But the more you understand these things, the better you can position yourself for success. So with these last few minutes that we have, Chris, kind of sum things up, help people understand, like, well, Chris, I get what can I do to prepare myself for this eventual future?
Well, again, Grant, our first show on this really exciting topic, one of my favorites, was really about all the benefits, all the good things. This show, we kind of showed the darker side, if we could say, the side of not so good, the side of over expectations is probably the best way to put it, right? So, when you hear initially quantum computing, like myself, when I first heard about it, and I got that, big broad sentence about what quantum computing can do, my mind is racing, thinking of everything that, everything will be fast. But, well, not true. There'll be the multitude of tasks that we do today will still be better on a traditional computer. Specific tasks and certain areas will be greatly enhanced by quantum computing, and the speed in terms of moving information will be enhanced by quantum computing. So we need to look at those two things a little bit separately, in that it's not a solution to everything. It's not like one day, all the traditional computers are going to be gone and everyone's just going to be doing quantum this, quantum that, and again, I'm looking at that 3-year window, right? Because after that, really all bets are off. Who knows then, right? Who knows? We may one day be surfing on the quantum internet. I don't know, So you start to think about a lot of these different things, and it just popped into mind something that you've been very good about mentioning a lot of times, is that people think about information in the cloud, that it's somewhere up there, right? But it's very much a ground business, and it's a big infrastructures, right, that are storing a lot of data and moving a lot of data, receiving, sending, all these things go on physically on the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
And quantum very well will be a great benefit to those data centers and those communication centers, right? So we can look at that. But again, it's not going to stream your movies any faster. It's not going to make the graphics on your games any better. You're not going to be able to write, a term paper any faster. Those things you're not going to see quantum impact.
Yeah. So you got to understand what it does do, but you have to be literate in the quantum world and understanding what it does do. Maybe the layperson doesn't necessarily need to know all these things, but if you are in engineering and you're in computer engineering and you're starting to understand how these things work, I remember, there's certain languages that were available, 20 years that we don't use anymore. So you start looking at, well, how does the compute cycle work? How does storage work? Now, these are big engineering terms, but this is how we get our technology to actually operate. So in the back end, the technological layer is going through an evolution, right? And what that evolution can look like. Because if we could do things more efficiently, right, and more precise, and understanding use case, like a lot of times technology for me is like, you have a tool set, and you got to know in your tool set, if you're working on a car, so to speak, right, when to use the screwdriver, when to use the wrench, when to get the power wrench out, right? And this is what I got from talking to Chris. It's like, hey, you don't take the power wrench out to just unscrew a small bolt on the car, unless it's super tight. It depends on what the situation is. So it's about the right use case for the right tool that you have to solve a problem. Like, that's the best case scenario. So I certainly see the hybrid world coming out. More hybrid, where you throw in your compute cycles and where that it's going to go, because there's high speed computing, they call it HPC, that's out there. It's big, because you can't get what you call traditional AI the way it's working now on a worldwide scale without what you call HPC. And if you go into a data center, and I encourage people to really understand what a data center is. A data center is the cloud, and you don't have to get on a rocket ship to go up there. You can actually go to one of these former warehouses or malls all over the world, and you go in there, and to Chris's point, when he talked about earlier, like, hey, it's like there's nothing on this floor but mainframe computers. There's nothing to see here, folks, but blinking lights. There's a lot of blinking lights that are going on, because what we're doing, we are recording physical reality in a digital setting, and our everyday life, we take it for granted. But I think someone even said it. I think, the average human being consumes or is involved in, it was some ridiculous number, I can't even remember the number of petabytes of information every single day, every single moment. We take this for granted, but it's happening. But when we try to record all of that information, it's a lot. So then you start looking at, well, how can quantum help out, right? So before I leave us with there, I want to give Chris, you got 2 minutes. Give us your final thoughts.
Well, again, Grant, I think the future is the hybrid, right? The future is the benefits of both combined to become a bigger benefit for us individually and collectively, right? And I think that's the excitement that quantum brings to our space, and that's to me, where we'll be during the next 3 years. We'll actually see that in practice and happening, right? So yeah, really exciting at that point. Also, if anyone is interested a little bit more, the newest issue of Financial IT magazine comes out in the beginning of June, and right in the beginning in my publisher's letter, I talk a little bit more detail about the quantum bank. So if anybody likes our discussion and wants to know a little bit more and as the time, go to our website, www.financialit.net, and it's there for you. Download the newest issue, which will be out in June, and you'll get a chance to read a little bit more about my thoughts and opinions on this subject.
I thank you again for being on the show. Tune us to us next week. We'll be here again on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. Take care.
Welcome to our TV network, your ultimate destination for all things exciting and essential. From mouth-watering food to the latest in fashion, health, education, music, movies, and news, plus thrilling sports and breathtaking travel. Our TV network brings it all to you. Tune in today and experience the best of every world, all in one place, rtv.network.